Hi, welcome everyone to the 17th World Education Summit. सभी को नमस्कार. So here we are with our panel, with the esteemed panelists from the PEN India, and the topic of discussion for this panel is preschool education, professional development of early childhood practitioners. And it's all my honor to
Abhishek ji, I can't
introduce.
hear you.
Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, Mr. Tomar.
Kavita ma'am, we are able to hear you, ma'am. So I request Kavita ma'am, can you log in and log out and log in again if you are not able to hear us? Just Deepak, just write in the chat. So I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists, the top education leaders from the PEN India. So it's my honor to welcome Dr. Kavita Jain, CEO, MD and Edify Education, Hyderabad. Dr. Kavita ma'am, are you able to listen us? So we will check the Kavita ma'am issue. So I will move on to our next panelist. I would like to welcome Mr. TJ Gupta, co-founder and COO, Bachpan and Academics High Group of Schools from New Delhi. Welcome, Dr. TJ. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to introduce Mr. Pritam Kumar Agarwal, founder, Hello Kids Education Group. Welcome, Pritam, sir. Thank you for giving your precious time to 17th World Education Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek and Nilesh, for bringing me here on this panel.
And I would like to welcome Ms. Seema Seni, CEO and the Principal, NL Dalmia High School from Mumbai. Welcome, Seema ma'am. Welcome to the 17th World Education Summit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tomar. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a
And
delight.
she will, yes, ma'am. And she will moderate this session. So I will hand over the session to Seema ma'am and looking forward for a wonderful discussion. Over to you, Seema ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Tomar. Great to interact with all of you this evening. I'm sure all of us understand that when early childhood education, that is the theme that we have right now. We understand that the impact this would have on life, the foundation learning and how it inbuilds the character of a child and prepares the child for scholastic and post-scholastic programs across his school journey and eventually prepares him for life. So we cannot undermine or give enough importance. There is a lot that can happen at early childhood level. And why is this early childhood care so important is what we would want to understand from you, since you're veterans in running pre-primary and early childhood education. You're the best people to put in your 2 bits to understand that do you think this needs so much of focus on. Also, we would want to discuss a little on how the new educational policy is shaping up or how we plan to implement this, because we understand the structure of education in the country is brought in, some tweaking has happened, and the foundation years, which were here not in the purview of the main education in the mainstream school system, has been brought into the mainstream school system. So what are your plans to incorporate this and move forward with the mainstream school? So these are some of the things that we would love to hear from all of you here, looking at how you plan to bring it in your organization, as well as the importance that you think it deserves and we need to give that. So without wasting too much of time, but acknowledging the fact that these years are extremely important. Till the age of 6, research proves that brain is the only organ that grows and develops after birth. All other organs are fully, they just grow in size probably. They are fully developed otherwise. But brain is one organ which grows as well as develops after birth. And exponential growth happens in the first 6 years of life. So how are we, when 85% of the child's cumulative brain development is going to be happening during these first 6 years, early childhood education demands that much more importance and that much more focus. How are you dealing with this aspect, and how do you bring this on in your curriculum, in your functioning, in your implementation of the program? So I'd like to put this across first to Mr. Pritam Kumarji, if you could begin this session for us, and then we move on to the other panelists as well.
Thank you, Seema Madam, for giving that the bottom line for the discussion, that how important the early years are. And I'll give you a very starting point of my journey in early childhood education. I'm in this industry for last 15 years. And Seema Madam, to be very precise, it was 2004, 2005 when I was planning to start a preschool. I went on the Google and I checked that what is the importance of early childhood education. And I was shocked to see something, that it was very, very something different. Even if you go today and search for it, I think most of your findings will be this. All right. So I'm trying to relate something to my first starting of the importance of early childhood education. So I found something, a lot of slides on Google, and it says that without a high quality early childhood education, right, 25% of students or the kids are more likely to drop out from the school. 40% of kids likely to become a teen parent. 50% are likely to be placed in special education. 60% will never attend a college, and 70% can be arrested for a violent. Right? So this was my eye opener for an importance of early childhood education. Right? So I said in 2005 to myself, if this education is so important, why this education is not compulsory in India? Right? And with this new education policy, right, the early childhood education has now become compulsory education. It is a part of the school system also. So see how important the early childhood education is. A child, as you said very correctly, the brain is right developing almost. It says, the research says that 80% of the brain developed before the age of 6 years. So if you all know about it, why even as a country we took 34 years to make it compulsory, right? So understand, a small child, and we say that a child after the birth, a child grows with the physical growth, yes, but there is a lot of mental growth also. A child's mind is like a whiteboard. You want to write anything, definitely it got a space to accept it. And when you give it properly in a form of proportionate, I say a systematic approach to that particular early childhood education, it remains that thing for the life. As because when we say that the growth of brain is 80% and the acceptance of level in that age category is very high, right, we have to have that early childhood education in a very better forms. So that is my intake when I started in 2005, and I was really giving that importance, that how important this education at the end. See, it is not that we are preparing the child for the next phase of the school. This education is really, we are preparing the child for the life, not for grade 1 or 2 or whichever the schools he will be attending after the nursery, LKG and UKG. And even I as a parent, I as an early childhood educator, there is a lot of importance to this education.
You're right, Mr. Agarwal. Well put up. Your statistics that you brought forward to tell how these meaningful learning experiences will set the tone for life. Not just their cognitive development, but also if you look at their, assimilation in society as they grow older, is based on all your experiences of your early childhood education. You very nicely put this across. Dr. Jain, Dr. Kavita Jain, I would like your inputs that, but how do you take it forward in your school? Why do you think early childhood education and care is so important? And what should be the steps that we bring in to bring in this required change? Dr. Jain, you're on mute. If you could, yes.
Is it better? I
Yes.
mean, are you able to hear me now?
Hear you now.
Why is it important? I think you and the previous speaker covered it beautifully well when you said about the brain development and other things involved. It is unfortunate that we've not made it a regulated approach to this early childhood education all these years, and I'm glad that the new education policy regularizes it to a great extent. And when I say regularize it, there is a body that is working on the curriculum development. There is a body that is focusing on learning outcomes, not just cognitive and academic, but also in terms of their social skills, emotional skills, gross motor, fine motor skills, their creative thinking. Nurturing curiosity. I think at that age, kids are most curious, and it's unfortunate that in a formal education system, over a period of time, that curiosity dies out because they are expected to follow a certain set syllabus. But the focus of the NEP on nurturing this curiosity is something that I'm, as an educator, very happy about. And in all our schools across the country, we've been doing this. What I also really find interesting in the NEP, this is apart from what we do in our schools, is the fact that this is going to be open to all the underprivileged children as well, in terms of the government schools and in terms of aided schools, including the midday meal scheme at the early childhood education, which will encourage more kids to come into this fold. Is also a wonderful initiative, according to me. In the last few years, we have seen a drop in the numeracy and literacy rate of our country's abilities of our children in the country, because of which a lot of reforms had taken place. And I believe introducing children to early childhood education and care will help us bridge that gap to a great extent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jain. You're right. There is, if you look at the level of pre-primary education throughout the country, you notice huge gaps in the literacy, numeracy rates, and you need to, and pre-primary or early childhood education is hardly included into that aspect. So, Mr. Gupta, how do you think that this gap, or what are the required changes that need to be brought about so that we can bridge this gap and fill the gap up, which Dr. Jain was talking about?
Hi everyone.
And your role, and your own private schools, and how do they play a role in this area? Yes.
Right. I'll go with the words of Pritam sir. When we started our journey, it's almost 15 years since Bachpan and AH-based schools are working. And when my brother went to search a play school, we are in Delhi, to search a play school. At that time, we have only Shamrock in, I think, in Delhi and other areas. So there were very less schools, timings were very odd, curriculum was not structured, books were not available. I'm not saying Jain was not doing the work, but actually there was no awareness or very little awareness in a city like Delhi, where we don't have that kind of facilities. At that time, we thought of starting up a play school, as the gaps was at the starting point and parents were not that much aware where to get into the play school industry, how to start up that, where to start the basic education, all those things. Coming on to the gap point, I still feel gap can only be reduced once we get into the structured model of preschool, which may happen, I'm using the word may happen, we will discuss it later, which may happen with the introduction of NEP. We have little figures for Delhi. Before NEP, or in fact, as of now, we don't have preschools or maybe the nursery classes in most of the Sarvodaya schools in Delhi. Out of 1,000 schools, only 500 schools are running the nursery classes. So we can understand the gap which is there for a child of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I think we have already discussed that, how beneficial or how important is to bring the wheels to the car. It's like play school is like the wheels to the car. Without that, you can't take up a car on any road, maybe bumpy road or maybe the normal road. So we can see those gaps would be there. And I think with NAB, these gaps can be reduced. We as a play school, maybe me or Pritam sir or MTN, we are doing our work. But if you get little support from the administration side or maybe from the government side, or there are little things which can be regulated further, I think this gap can be reduced or at least can't be widened further.
Very interesting. That's true. I would like to understand how at Bachpan or in Hello Kids and Dr. Jain, your schools, how do you look at developing the socio-economic and ethical development of students or children? How is your play group looking at this aspect? Because all three of you pointed out that when we want to bring children in mainstream society and school, through your own ways, you have mentioned that preschool plays a very important role in developing the child to help the child become good citizens when they grow up or come into mainstream school, and their development would be accordingly. So I want to understand, what do you do to bring in the social, emotional, or the ethical development in children, very young children that come to your school? How do you look at that aspect?
All right, I'll take it first, Seema madam.
Yes.
It's a very, very important aspect. See, I was talking to somebody in almost a day before, the day before, and they said that the role of preschools future to this COVID-19, after COVID-19, how the online sessions will continue or not continue, something. So I said very, very important thing is which I have taken it. See, a lot of learning is really coming out through online, but as a small young child, the first school is really meant for socializing only. The first thing, a child after the birth, for that 1 or 2 years, it is within the family only, because of safety, because of because of a new child, a young child, and they have not initiated anything as a society as such. So the school is the first, I'll say, the first social point for the child, when the child is going to that preschool or a play school, which is very, very nearer to his or her place. So this socializing, and these preschools are even taken by these parents also as a socializing point rather than an education point also. So keeping that thing in mind, these preschool are activity based. These are all small groups. They have specific age specific groups also. So we tend to learn very fast when we have a similar age group. I can have a friend with an uncle who is 60 years old, but he may not be comfortable at some point of time, and even I may not be comfortable at some point of time. If the kids are of the same age group, where these preschools do have this, the growth of these children are very, very fast, because they get a similar. Let's not talk about even a school only. If you have seen something as a child going to a birthday party or a wedding party or any function, he has not seen any other, he has never met that kids, but the child is playing for hours without speaking to the other child also. They are just running behind. So these schools have, see, our schools have that play time, that food time, that story time, that rhymes time. See, this is all activity based, and this is all meant for the child. So they all play together, they all eat together, they all enjoy together. So that is the best socializing time as such when we talk about preschools.
Very true. Very interesting. You've put it across. One more thought came in while you were speaking, that yes, now the same socialization becomes a tall order with this online preschool education that is happening. And to expect young students individually sitting at home and dealing with the class and being focused is a tall order. And I wonder how since the classroom has gone home, it is how the parents are getting involved with their toddlers, and they realize teachers have a big task in their hand when they have 20 in a class or 30 in a class, depending on how the schools look at it. So Dr. Kavita, if you can also add on to these points, and how do you think you look at that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, like I think he mentioned that socializing is really the key at that age, and um, we follow a structured framework where we begin with kids identifying their own emotions, uh, recognizing them, expressing them, and then empathizing with their
Mhm.
peer group and the faculty in the classroom. So it all begins with identifying, recognizing, and expressing, being able to express their emotions, to say, I like it, I don't like it, or why I like it, or why do I think the way I think, or what is my opinion about it. Creating those thought processes at an early age will give them the essential skills for socializing. Uh, Also, it requires tremendous hours of professional development for teachers. And I strongly believe um, preschool teachers need the most training, not
I-
just in terms of academic and subject delivery, but more in terms of identifying, um, like I said, recognizing emotional growth of a child, social growth of a child. So some form of psychological training is also essential for preschool teachers. It's very unfortunate that that so far most preschools, standalone preschools, I wouldn't really talk about preschools which are within the setup of a K-12 school, but at least standalone preschools, getting trained teachers or availability of trained teachers is a challenge. And even if we train them, then retention is a big challenge, because most of them are young. They're looking at getting married and going off, or they're taking this up as a part-time job and are not, I wouldn't say are not committed to the job, but then for them it's easy to quit this job and pick up something else or not do something else. So bringing in a format uh, to bring teachers by choice and not by chance, train teachers, training them on developing these skills and not just teaching alphabets and numbers. But I often quote this example. For most of us, I mean, who grew up in a generation where we had joint families, a lot of our social and emotional development happened through our grandparents, through their storytelling, through their communication, through their sitting with us, touching us, expressing their love to us in varied formats. And these preschools should bring that touch into the classroom, and the teachers must be trained to do something like that. And I think that's a way to develop socio emotional and a lot of other abilities within small to big preschools.
You're absolutely right. You're very valuable insights. I mean, training is extremely important, especially if the teacher or the facilitator herself is not sensitive or sensitized to these developments. It's very difficult to expect or incorporate this in the classroom. So you
Just to
brought
add
this.
on,
Yes.
sorry, just to add on, with the number of learning disabilities and disorders that India is increasingly seeing over a period of time. You know, the last statistics that I read was mind-boggling, where it said 1 out of 11 children in India could be ADD or ADHD and who go unrecognized. And preschool is the age when you can recognize it the fastest. Any kind of even delayed development, I mean, developmental milestones, all those can be recognized at preschool level. And unfortunately, our teachers are not trained to recognize it. And hence their treatment or their diagnosis and remedy delays, further slowing their process of recovery.
You're very right. This generally is done for higher classes. The kind of training, whether any kind of learning disability, dyslexia or dysgraphia, or all of those, features that are noticed in children's behavior or through their academics, is done at a little higher stage and not in pre-primary level. But if our teachers are sensitized to identifying the students with these kind of gaps, or if there are some delayed behavior pattern or their interaction with other children, lot of remedial or corrective action can be taken at that time. So this is a very valid point that you have brought in, and we agree that early childhood education is no different when you look at you need to be focused in developing those main cognitive skills, but the approach is completely different. Approach of handling the children and the curriculum. So, Mr. Gupta, I would like your inputs over here. When you're looking at developing cognitive or motor skills that need to be brought in fine and gross, or imaginative play, or some kind of like curiosity that is there in children, the unbound curiosity that is there, that needs a channel. And how do we give shape to that? What kind of activities and what kind of programs do you bring in so that the students are able to take it on smoothly and the teachers are able to implement it?
Seema ma'am very perfectly put a question, and during COVID, this is the most important question which is occurring. Why kids don't want to stay near their tablet, or why don't parents think it's useful to get them online?
Yes.
Last week, my daughters asked me, Papa, when the schools are opening. I said, Beta, what you are missing? You are taking your classes, now you are learning, you are saying it's quite comfortable. Sometimes you are eating also in front of camera and the teachers are not saying anything. So what was the answer what I got from a student actually? I'm missing my friends. I'm missing my sports. I'm missing that little things given or the task given by the teacher. I'm missing. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm missing. May I go to washroom, ma'am? I'm missing all those things. So, as a student, if you go into the student mind, actually they are missing all those things which bring the social and emotional development. Frankly speaking, we all are doing taking the classes, but these all things, maybe this development would be a part of correct schooling and correct participation, which is only possible once schools are open. This is true in this sense. Now I'll go with Kavita ma'am word. What is lacking in our education system as a whole? I'm talking about, and I'm not saying about the play school. First, we as an India are not investing in teachers. If we start investing in our teachers, the investment need to be done with time first, then with the money. If we spend only the money, teacher training program are conducted everywhere, but we are not investing time in them. We all as a school during COVID has invested in teachers. A lot has been invested in terms of technology, in terms of training. And now we can see our teachers blossoming up like never before. They are doing those jobs which were not assigned to them or which they were not supposed to do. So this is a perfect figure what is happening out there. Now, investment in emotional health of preschool educators again needs training. I feel with the NEP, we also an educator needs training. If government can bring some plans, some platforms for us, how to run the school, how you want your education system or the Indian education system to be shaped up. If you have a common motto or the common content, I think it can be delivered very well. Third, apart from investing teachers, India's struggle in quality exposure given to young children, especially in the villages part. We are doing very well in the urban part, but what about villages? Everywhere we find that gap is there in the education part. So I think NEP maybe can, again I'm using the maybe word, can bring a gap to all those things. But yes, investing in teachers, bringing correct activities to the kids, making a correct formula, concept room, all those things play a correct role for the development.
So, Mr. Gupta, you feel NEP, people would be happy to take on the kind of regulations that they need to implement the NEP? Because till now, pre-primary was an unregulated field. So on their own, I mean, there were no policies basically to regulate whether teacher training is to the appropriate level or what is expected, or norms and conditions were not regulated by the government, state or the center in any way for the pre-primary education. So you think once the NEP comes in, because now that pre-primary comes into the purview, age 3 to 8 comes into the purview, would this be a problem? Because all three of you are running your independent preschools. So what is your take on that? That would it be comfortable, you think, or this is going to be more of a a way to control and bring in the license Raj kind of thing, or bring in more regulatory? I mean, it may be a hard-hitting question, but we need to be just to have a little practical approach to the whole thing, because I also identify and understand, acknowledge one thing, that it is the private schools who are doing a wonderful job by filling in the gaps that are required. 15% of private schools are doing what 80% of good education in the country can be seen. So I do acknowledge that part. And there are some government schools which are doing exceedingly well. But I'm taking a broad perspective and trying to tell you across the country, how does it come across? These few private schools who do a brilliant job in creating that kind of quality education. So how do you think this NEP is do you think it's going to be supportive, or how do you think the implementation, would there be issues? You would have read what is there for the early childhood education in the new education policy. So, Mr. Gupta,
yeah. And if you put aside the political thing, then I think it can work out in a critical manner. Problem is that everywhere the politics kind of thing. I'll share a small story with you. When the NEP was ready to be formed by 2018, we got an invite from government just to come into the session and to participate, and what changes they are going to bring, just to discuss on that. Why we were invited? There were no educationists at that time, no play school chain, no formal school chain. So we were little surprised why we are being called. So the simple thought which came into their mind, they simply Googled it, top schools in India. They got whatever they got on first or second page. They randomly invited 2-3 people from that. So we were lucky at that time. We were on the first, second page of Google. So when we went into that conference or the mini agenda, the only agenda which government said, we want to regulate the fees for schools because you people are thieves and charging XYZ amount from the parents. That was the actual words which were being sent to us. So we simply asked a question, sir, why you want to regulate the fees? Because they said, because education is a common thing, it should be available to everyone. Then what about medicines? Then what about roti kapda makan? You always say roti kapda and makan. Schooling to abhi aati bhi nahi hai. Leave that word. Then why don't want to regulate the hospital, the bills, so all those things, when it comes to politics, it becomes rubbish. So if you ask me, it depends upon how the state government and how the central government is going to play this NEP. But yes, if it played perfectly, it has all those ingredients which can make a perfect recipe for all of us. We have the EC system, we have the training system, Anganwadi system has been identified. I was just reading an article 2 days back, and it was saying play schools are bound to increase with a ratio of as fast as fast food chains. By 2024, we can see another maybe 2 lakh or 3 lakh play schools which are popping up, maybe branded, unbranded, and which is as fast as maybe the fast food chain. So you can understand what kind of scope and what kind of requirement we have in our country. But yes, again, a small regulation and small support in terms of curriculum, in terms of ethics, in terms of work being, just support us in that, and I think it can sound good.
You're right. Mr. Agarwal, if you could also, Preethamji, put in your 2 bits to this. You're muted, sir. Yeah.
Yes, what is my take on this part is, I as a brand owner have written to the earlier MHRD, and even I have written this time also. Till the time this is as the education is a state issue, right? NEP will not only solve this issue, because every state government will come with their own agenda of regulating these preschools. That is one. And till now, this is almost 3-4 months. No state government has come forward and say that this is the rules and regulations going to be for early childhood centers, which is now written in NEP as preschools, 10-year-old preschools. That is one. Second thing is, as a state, as a Karnataka is the only state right now where I belongs to Bangalore, and Karnataka is the only state where there are approved and approved by government of Karnataka to run some preschools. That was in 2018, they regulated it, and that is already given it to thousands of schools across Karnataka. Now, what are the challenges? As I have already discussed the same thing earlier also. The challenges is, there are so many challenges, madam, for preschools. The number of working hours. If you see metros and the best of the schools across Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad and Pune, these preschools operate for around 2 to 3 hours, which is a very international standard, according to the age specific, according to the group specific, according to the research specific, that the preschools can run for around 10 to 12 hours per week. So which is exactly running into these cities. But if you go to rural India, there are preschools running for 6 and 7 and 8 hours also. They start early in the morning. I know my own centers in Andhra Pradesh, right, which is somewhere in Kadapa. They start 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, right? So till the time we do not have a similar frame of rules across India, this preschool education will continue as the same only. Now that is one aspect of ours. The second one is, we all have different academic sessions. Even for the schools, if you believe, Northeast have different academic year, Jammu Kashmir have different academic year, Odisha, West Bengal have different academic year than the South India also, right? Somebody starting, we all talks about it, 1 year academic year, it ends up in 10 months of working schools. But now I have seen schools starting in March itself for the new academic year. So even we are not completing the full academic year as such. So that is one. Third very, very important part is, as on date, I am 3 years, as on January as on February, as on April, as on October, right? Every state had got new rules. Now, when a parent is changing a school from South India to Delhi, we'll have a lot of issues because the age maybe in Delhi they are talking about in the month of April, but in Bangalore we are talking about in terms of June. So even that part is very difficult. Now coming to the fourth point, right? When we are talking about running these schools, standalone schools, we have to have how many permissions to run a small preschools of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 square feet. I need to have a fire approval. I have to have a food safety approval. I have to have a sanitary approval. I have to have a green environment approvals. So there were some issues in Chennai, right? And they asked for around 19 approvals to run a small preschools. Now Bangalore talks about, Chennai talks about some 9 square meter per child. If I go to Mumbai, there are 300 square feet preschools. The preschools are running in 300 and 500 square feet. So if these basic guidelines are not same across India, we will continue with the same challenges for these preschools and it will continue. I'm not talking in terms of education. In terms of education, they are doing wonderful. So because of these people, because of this industry for the last 15 years, the government has to understand the importance of early childhood education. So I salute to people like Tijay Gupta or any other brand owners, those who are really taken initiative to take this preschool and education to even the rural part of India, right? Because of their presence, now people have valued the importance of early childhood education. So ye problem, the government has to come forward and ease this problem so that these early education centers can run. And definitely, madam, let them bring something where, see, if you say that the people has to go to a 5,000 square feet, I don't think people will be able to afford this small space, small fees. This has to be meant for a child which is proximity to their residences.
Absolutely.
Right? In resident, we had a Bangalore issue. In residential area, you can run a bar and restaurant, but you cannot run a preschool. What is this rule all about? So if you can bring such rules, definitely people will have issues. I don't want my young child to go to a commercial area with a traffic and lot of parking issues, building issues, going to a first floor and the second floor, right? He has to have it in a ground floor residential area, proximity to people, easy and less of traffic to that areas. So there are there will be lot of things will happen. And let's see, madam, hope for the best that this education will be taken care of by the policy makers, that they will not disturb a lot of basic things rather than bringing some rules and regulation by bringing some quality intakes for the teachers to say that the minimum qualification of teachers has to be this. The ratio in the class should be this. You need to have a CCTV camera. You need to have a fire extinguisher in the school. You need to have a clean water and the toilet facilities. So bring this kind of rules rather than operational issues.
So very right, Mr. Agarwal, you have really highlighted the issues, the problems that are generally faced by schools in the country. Climatic conditions being different, the academic cycle varies, and probably, when we talk of regulations, this is what we need to look at: the teacher-student ratio in the classroom, the CCTV camera footage, so that safety and security of children, the care and concern aspect are given, are taken due care. Because when you have rampant, schools mushrooming without any basic regulation of this kind, that could lead to problems. So maybe by streamlining pre-childhood education, early childhood education, by streamlining this in the NEP, probably, all of those aspects that you talked about, that can be taken care of. And I'm sure our government will definitely look at this aspect also. Not just the government, but each one of us here, when we in our fields, in our respective schools, when we know the focus is on early childhood, the reasons why that meaningful learning experience is so important, and the things that we need, the repercussions are going to be lifelong. With your brands that you're running, you are definitely taking care of all of these development. So very good points you have highlighted. The Kavita ji, Dr. Jain, if you could tell the NEP, I'm sure you will resonate with the same idea that the vision of NEP is very good. The vision of NEP talks about India has got its varied knowledge economy or knowledge society that we want to bring in to Indianize the education in a way during early schooling, so that children are more. It could be local, but at the same time be global citizens, but understand locally also. New NEP or the new education policy talks about experiential learning, interdisciplinary learning, all of these aspects actually, which with the due regulation will probably, if you could put in your ideas to this, Dr. Jain, and tell us about how you think the new education policy will change the early childhood education going forward with the inputs that we have received now. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Maybe I look at the policy a little differently from the other two panelists on the panel. I think any policy should give a framework and not really minute regulations, because preschools need a lot of independence to customize not just infrastructure, but other variables based on the local conditions. It could be climatic, it could be geographical, it could be socio-economic background of the students who are coming to them. I know a lot of our preschools have first generation learners, and there are preschools who have kids of professionals studying in those preschools. There has to be a lot of customization, flexibility to customize at school level. And we can't say one size fits all at a preschool level.
I think the connection's gone down. So some hard hitting, if ma'am comes in, we'll take her on
Yeah,
again.
sorry.
Yes, there
Yeah,
she
I
is.
think I got
Yeah.
knocked off. So, what I like about the NEP as of now is it's just giving broad framework. It is saying that these are the objectives that we have to achieve. It is not giving us, okay, this is how you are supposed to be doing it. It is giving that flexibility to educators to find a path to reach that learning outcome. In terms of infrastructure, regulations, and permissions, anything when regulated is going to bring discomfort, because we are not used to that regulation. We are used to doing things our way. Of course, I'm sure the brands on this panel and other brands also work their best to ensure that the minimum standards are maintained in terms of security, safety, learning spaces, child-friendly spaces, all of that. But like you said, there are so many independent preschools in rural areas which maybe do not even focus on these aspects. So the regulation will make preschools safer place for kids. It will bring discomfort to, I'm sure, a lot of preschools who are not used to this kind of a regulation, but that's essential. A little discomfort to structure and streamline our preschool segment is essential. As far as interdisciplinary and experiential learning is concerned, I think that's driven by the curriculum. When NEP says that the curriculum designed for early childhood education should focus on these learning outcomes, the curriculum that is being designed by the concerned department and what we follow in our respective preschools, I'm sure will address to this particular aspect. For example, at Edify, we've been focusing on interdisciplinary learning from 2006. We don't even have subject-wise books in up to grade 5. We just do interdisciplinary books. All our books are integrated. It's completely story and theme based. So we've been doing it for years. And we are glad that something like that is being recognized, because we see the advantage in kids. It's not just about learning content. It's about learning application. And an example that I give very often is, if anybody asks us A4, the first thing that will come to our mind is Apple, because it's so fed into our system. A for apple, B for ball, we just can't think beyond it. But today's kids are not like that. They are not going to buy just an A for apple. They would want to, or at least the curriculum should drive them to thinking, okay, A has multiple sounds, and for each sound, let me identify around me what objects do I resonate with. So those kind of interconnectedness with what they're learning academically to real life scenario and what's around them will make the curriculum more application oriented and not just content oriented. And NEP strives to do that. I think it's a beautiful policy. Of course, there are, like the other speakers said, I recognize that state governments may complicate or simplify the policy with political or non-political agendas. One advantage with franchisee schools is maybe the franchisers are doing a lot of research, bringing in all the changes, preparing to train the teachers. I'm really a little, I wouldn't say worried, but I really want to see how this is going to play out with independent preschools who just have like 3-4 teachers. How are they going to invest in that kind of a research to upgrade their curriculum, upgrade their teachers is something that I would look forward to see how it plays out.
Very nice. In fact, with the foundation years coming in till grade 2, pre-primary to grade 2 in NEP, I think this part will become better, is my understanding, is what I positively think, that with pre-primary to grade 2, the readiness for the higher classes and being ready for mainstream school will become better. Of course, provided that quality education should be the focus, with whether standalone or the franchisor model, how do, as in when each school, if the focus is on quality education, all of this comes forward. The topic that we have today, that early childhood education and its care, each one of you could give your closing remarks on the topic, and then we can summarize this. So, Mr. Pritam Kumar, you could start, and then Dr. Gupta. Early childhood.
Madam, as
Yeah.
so the focus, obviously, these are young kids, and that atmosphere, that early childhood centers, that training, as Tejas said, it is very, very crucial. We all need to understand the young child. They have different languages. The first thing is, rather than they understand us, they understand our curriculums, they understand our language. We need to understand these young minds. That is first. Second is what they need. If we can understand the learning outcomes which we are really planning, and if our curriculum, our training, and whatever the assessment, if it's synchronized in a very better way, which can be delivered in a very better way by our teachers, then our job is done as 100%. So understanding the child and understanding the learning outcome nicely delivered by the teachers, these will be the key learning part of these early childhood centers.
Very true, Mr. Agarwal. And like Dr. Kavita Jain said, that franchisers can do a great job by preparing the, broad-based curriculum and how it needs to be implemented. And then, I mean, I got that part that, if I'm right, Dr. Kavita, you had mentioned that's how the training part can also be taken care of all the franchisee schools, and they follow this.
Absolutely.
So professional development.
May I
Yes, please carry on.
go on? Yeah, as a part of the closing remark, what I really wanted to add on is the NEP should also focus on changing parent expectations from a preschool. Today's many parents expect and compare kids. Okay, that preschool is getting my child to write in nursery. Why are you not getting them to write in nursery? Or my child is able to write my neighbor's child is able to write 3 pages in LKG, and here my child is not even holding a pencil in LKG. I think one of the core responsibilities of preschool is to educate parents, orient them towards what NEP is. What are the learning outcomes NEP is talking about? It is not just a child's ability to write or to memorize, but to focus on all those skills, and that will shift, because I shouldn't be calling it a business, but at the end of it, it is also, it works like a business. The consumer demand drives the product development or the service delivery. If the consumer demand is moderated and is educated and aware, the service delivery can also be upgraded, upskilled, and be quality focused. So teachers, educators, and if there are parents on this board, it will be, in the audience, it will be a wonderful idea to get them to read the snippets of NEP. And tell them what it means, and so that when we are implementing it, we don't again face those challenges.
You're right. One thing that comes to mind with what you just said, when we go to a doctor, we don't tell the doctor that, oh, give me this medicine, I have stomach pain, or I have so-and-so problem, give me this. So why do we have the parents coming forward trying to direct the school to make my child write or make my child read. Or we know what is the age appropriate time, when do they develop their fine motor skills or their gross motor skills, when is the right time that they should hold a pencil, when should they begin writing. We should be the people to, after doing our due diligence of research, of training, implement these things. So that's a very valid point you brought forward. So though parental expectations need to be set in that manner, it is more important that our practitioners, our early childhood educators are trained to that level, that through professionally. So the parents can have that confidence on the school and on the practitioners, on the teachers. When they have that confidence on the teachers, probably, and that would happen only when people like you, who are in this field, who are developing the curriculum in that manner, and the due training that has happening, it is only then that confidence in parents will also come in. But you're right, communication channels need to be bridged. Totally take that's our role, right, Mr. Jain? If you could just add on to this, that how do you think professional development of early childhood educators would help resolve these issues that are coming up, or how do we prepare for NEP with our professional training? Yes, and we could close this one.
Is that question for me?
Yeah, Mr. Gupta, sorry, and then we come back to you, Jen. Yeah.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. At least you said business. I was just having a word in my mind that what GST brought to us, GST is ease of doing business. So for me, I was a little afraid by using business. People mind like, why you're saying education is a business. So anyways, thank you for that. So what NEP can do for us is ease of doing business. Whether that will happen or not, we never know. Maybe Kavita ma'am is on the other side of coin, and me and Pritam sir is on the other side of coin. Till the local state government, till the local state policy doesn't come into picture, which may happen by June, July once schools are open, I think then we can see a true picture within 1 year what NEP is actually going to do, or whether that will be beneficial or not. As a preschool owner, what I feel the need of the hour is the expansion of this preschool industry, or maybe the preschools or the Anganwadi centers, which is a part of our ECC policy, Anganwadi centers to the farthest part of our country. I disagree with the fact it might be a standalone play school, it might be a branded school, it might be a co-ed school. Now look at India, we don't have schools here. I work in almost 400 cities. We are having centers in those cities also where we don't see a single formal school. Villages, or maybe we can say those Adivasi ilakas. Yes, we have schools at that place also, and we see a huge demand. And believe me, those parents are much more aware than our metro parents. They come to every PTM. I think in Bangalore or Delhi, it's hard to call parent for the PTM also. 50-60% comes. I don't know about Pritam sir Bangalore, but Delhi, hardly 50-60% parents come for PTM. But yes, if you see the trend in annual day center, annual day events or the PTM, we can see the parent. So for me, I think preschool is a good scope. We are into the good space right now. Once schools are open, we need that expansion. We are doing this as a chain. I think standalone schools need to be brought up. Yes, NEP quality brings good factor. We can go through a common agenda, common formula, common framework. It's always good to have a framework. We are not against framework, but that should be appropriate and that shouldn't be political.
Very true, rightly put across, Mr. TJ Gupta ji, that this is the way we have to. You're reaching the farthest corner of the country. That itself, education is for all. And how do we implement it to make the best use of our, human capital is what needs to be developed, and that happens right from the early years. It begins the focused approach, the approach to bring in the right outcomes. And when our focus is on developing ethically and not just physical, mental, but also ethical, also social skills in children, all of it in every aspect of our society, that is when probably we'll be able to see a much stronger foundation of education in our country. It has gone through a sea change over the years. There was a time we would say that, yes, we are dealing with 19th century curriculum, 20th century teachers, 21st century learners. But today, after this pandemic, everything has come at a level where we are recalibrating, rebooting ourselves, and getting ready to implement even the NEP from the next year onwards. So too many things to take into account, but with the focus being on early childhood and care, foundation years, if they are developed well, we know our mainstream superstructure will be really strong for our children to take on in this knowledge economy that we are talking of, knowledge society that we are talking of. So glad to have your inputs, Mr. Pritam Kumar Agarwal ji, Mr. T.J. Gupta ji, and Dr. Kavita Jain. Very, very valuable insights have come in. We had a very interesting mix of our discussion with NEP coming in, the government coming in, and also due care on early education and outcomes that we expect from that. All the best to all of you. You all are doing a wonderful job in the society, and you continue to flourish and to take care of the, the young minds that are there and develop them further. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seema ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful session and the wonderful moderation. And thank you, Pritam sir, for giving us time for this, sharing your ideas and thoughts. Thank you, TJ sir. Thank you very much for World Education Summit. I request Deepak to share the speaker certificate to our speakers. And this is small token of appreciation to our speakers. And the speaker certificate is presented to Mr. TJ Gupta, co-founder and COO, Bachpan and Academics, Height of Group of Schools, New Delhi. Thank you, TJ sir. Thank you for joining World Education. Speaker certificate is presented to Mr. Pritam Kumar Agarwal, founder, Hello Kids Education Group. Thank you, Pritam sir. Thank you for joining World Education Summit and sharing your ideas. And next speaker certificate is presented to Ms. Seema Seni, CEO and the Principal, NL Dalmia High School, Mumbai. Thank you, Seema ma'am. Thank you for joining World Education Summit. And to Dr. Kavita Jain, CEO, MD and Edify Education, Hyderabad. Thank you, Dr. Kavita, for joining World Education Summit. And I thank all my participants also who are watching us live. So if you have any question, you can take it offline also. And all our speakers are well active on the social media. You can drop your question on the social media handles as well. Or you can drop on education@digitallearning.in. We will share your questions to the speakers. If they revert, we will get back to you. Thanks. Thank you, Seema ma'am. Thank you, Pritam sir. Thank you, TJ sir, for joining 17th World Education Summit.
Thank you, sir, for your